All right, here we are. Okay, I want to make sure everybody can hear me out there. Cookie Pants, are you out there? Can you tell me, can you hear me okay? I didn't have any music starting this time, but it is time for happy little APIs. I hope you're happy. I hope you're building APIs. Good. We've got a sounds good on the sound from Mr. Rob Sutter, my man, and from AWS is here. Be on my best behavior. Nah, I'm just kidding. All right. So today we are going to wrap up the very last part of our excuse me one second here. I have a streaming issue there. Okay, we're going to wrap up the last of a three-part series on building a URL shortener serverlessly, but without using Lambda. Now, if you've not watched any of the stream yet, we actually built using API Gateway and DynamoDB. We built a URL shortener where what are we doing? I'm telling you right now, where we actually integrate or the API Gateway directly with DynamoDB. And we built a resource for each of our actions, right? All right, Cookie Pants is in the house. What's up? All righty, so we've got so just a quick run through to kind of show you. First, we built our get. So we made it so you had to pass a link ID, and to get a get, and we can just show you that. We can say, hey, if we're going to test, we want to pull AWS, and we test this, then it's going to return no data, but the location header gives us a redirect, okay? Then we also added the ability to get a list of our APIs based on our user. And we also to post new URLs. So this is, we have a client to edit this. And then to delete and to put, okay? So we kind of went through all that. If you missed a lot of that, I would suggest go back to Happy Little APIs. Actually, episode 2 and episode 3, which are the first and second parts of this particular little mini series. Last week, we also added our options. And I explained last time, we want to... Oh, you only see my face? Good. Yeah, good call. All right, let me just go back here real quick. Nobody wants to watch my face. I understand that. Thanks for calling that out, Mr. Rob Sutter, who is the first to say, get rid of my face. All right, so I was showing you here where we had our get. And let me do that test again so you can see it. The idea behind this is if we send it a link ID, a short link of some type. For instance, I have one in there for AWS. And I run a test against it, then I get no data, which is expected on a response body, but instead I get a 301. So notice my status is a 301, and my location is http://aws.amazon.com. So my browser would be directed to that. And it took me 44 milliseconds to get that response, okay? If I hit test again, we'd probably see some shorter ones, 48, just lied right to you. Let's try it again, okay? 53, we seem to be going up. All right, I'm just going to play with this. 47, so right around there. Usually it's under 50 or less. And when you start adding caching, you can get down into the single latency. So it's a very fast way to do that. All right, so let me see where we're at here. Oh, thank you for posting that link. I appreciate that. Rob Sutter's posted the links in there if you have been looking for that. All right, so the last thing we did, and I told you, wait till the end to add your options, because your options can kind of read what's out there and kind of set that up for it. Yes, you're watching it right now. This is session 3. So when I added my options, I actually went in here and on the resource itself, I went in and I said, enable cores, which we've already done. And what it does is it builds a mock, okay? So if you think about, and I think I explained this last session, but just a real quick recap. If you think about the way these work, when an API gateway has to make a call like a post or a delete or a put, not API gateway, a client has to make a call like post, delete, or put, some type of where it can take action, or if there's credentials involved, it'll do a pre-flight check. And your server needs to be able to see that. It's called an options. It needs to be able to say, hey, here's what you can do. Here's the headers. Here's whatever. And it kind of acts as a responder. And we don't really want to have to build a Lambda or build that into our server. So we can do what's called a mock integration. So if you look in here under the integration, we just set it to mock. We can actually do a mapping template where our mapping template just simply says, hey, you get a 200 back. You did a call. Here's your status code 200. It worked. That's fine. But then in our integration response, it's going to pass back some data for us. And it does it in the header mappings. It says, first of all, here's the control allow headers we're going to do. So it sets up some different things that can be passed in. Here's the control allow methods. And you'll notice this is going to match what's in here. It set up a get, it set up a post, it set up an options. And finally, here's the control allow origin. Now, what we see a lot of times is we see people do this. Okay, well, we're going to go in here and we see people put in a star because they say cores is hard. We've already had the cores is hard conversation, but they put the star because I just don't want to deal with all this, so I'm going to put a star, right? Well, that's not the best way to handle it. That's not the securest way to handle that. You want to limit this as much as you can. And a lot of the things that we hear people say is, well, yeah, but I want more than one. And if you're going to have more than one, then you have to, with with REST APIs, you have to dynamically build that from the back end. So rather than passing this in, you would have to dynamically grab that data from your Lambda. On HTTP API, however, which is V2 of our REST APIs, you can actually put in multiple origins that are allowed to hit it. So it kind of handles that data for you. All right, so let's take a look, see if we got any questions. Nope, just a lot of talking about Coors Light. Joke, because call it, yeah, I get that. Very good, all righty. All right, so let's talk about, so that's one way we do security, obviously through cores. So that we've also, if you'll remember, on each of our resources, so let's say our app get, we applied an authorizer. Okay, we built an authorizer where you had to be logged in to get at this. And in the last few sessions, I showed how to make sure that works. Now we can log into that. Okay, now you notice under link ID, I don't have an authorizer because anybody should be able to get to this particular resource. So several things for security. We built an authentication system where you have to be logged in to use the app to work against this API. The second thing we've done is we have added some just basic core security that say, hey, you have to be coming from this domain to modify this. Now notice on our Git integration on the link where we want anybody to be able to hit it and get it, we don't have that limitation. We actually did use that's our location header, sorry. We're not even passing back a requirement because we're not even doing a pre-flight on this. I don't even have to have that options because it's a simple get. Okay, I could put in here, I could say allowed origin of star, but that's automatically going to be put there because there's not going to be a pre-flight on this. All right, so that's how we do some of the security measures in there. And there's some other things we can do to help secure this. Okay, and I'm just going to point out a couple so you can see this. The first is, let's say you want to get into, you want to do some whitelisting or blacklisting and things like that. Well, one of the handy things we have is we have the ability to build and I'm going to show you right here. If I go into the prod and I go over to my settings, down under, I can add a web application firewall. Okay, so I can actually go in, and we're going to create this real quick. Okay, I'm going to go in and it actually takes me over to the AWS WAF. And if you're not familiar with what a WAF is, it allows you to do all kinds of different things on front of an API gateway or in front of a lot of different systems. You can bolt a WAF onto multiple different things. You can do it at CloudFront, you can do it at API gateway. And what it allows you to do, and we'll kind of walk through this real quick so you can kind of see it. So let's just say we're going to go limit to country. We'll call this actually country. We'll just call it country. There we go. All right, and I'm not going to worry about that. CloudWatch metric name, CloudFront distributions. I'm going to do regional resources, okay, application load balancer, and API gateway. All right, so I need to make sure it's in the same region that I'm in. So I'm going to go US West 2. I can find it. There we go, Oregon. Okay. All righty. Okay. And apparently I just refreshed there, so let's try that again now that I've got so it liked me to be in the right region to do that. Okay. How long do you have them steam up before they upload? Okay, we try to upload them within an hour and a half, so they are on the YouTube channel. All right, let's try this again. Country, okay? And I can do description. I'm not going to worry about that. It's going to be a regional, US regional, okay? And then we're going to associate a resource. Okay, let's see here, add a resource. So I'm going to do, it lists my different ones. So here's my shorty. So this is actually the Amazon API gateway. So I'm going to hit add here. Okay, so there we go. I'm going to go next. Okay, I'm going to add some rules. Okay, hey, Expo Code. Hello, how are you? Welcome. All right. I got a notification to call out. All right, so we can do manage rule groups or add my own rule groups. Let's just do rules and ruled groups, okay? So we're going to name this again, country I haven't done one in this, so I could well make a mistake here. We're just going to use a regular rule. Okay. Matches the statement, matches all the statement. Oh, this is not one I think I want to do. I think I want to do it different. Let's do an IP set. There we go. That's what I want. Okay. So we're going to choose an IP set. Nope. Rule group. Come on. Where's the one that I want? Rule builder. All right. So we'll do a custom rule builder. All right. And I'm not done it this way, so we may just talk conceptually at the moment. But what this allows you to do is if you go into these and you build out, like let's say you want to build an IP set. Okay, we'll just do that. Okay, and you could say, you know, I don't know, this is called my whitelist. All right. And then in here, I can choose an IP set, which I don't have any, so I need to actually go through and I would go over and create an IP set. And you get the idea, and this is actually kind of a lengthy process, so we're not going to go through all of it, but you get the idea that you build out your web ACL, you build out your IP set, or you can say, hey, just attaches to a country, or so on, and you can say only US can get here, or only outside of US, or something like that. So we're actually going to drop this for the moment. If to watch through the whole thing, at reInvent this last year, I did a session called for building an API gateway front to back. And I actually show how to do a full WAF. And it takes a little while, so we won't take a lot of the time to do that, but you can see how that works. So you get the idea on that one. All right, so once that's built, then I can actually go in and I could select that, and then I would save the changes. Okay, once I save the changes, then I would have to do a deploy once. Then after that, anytime I change the WAF, those would be applied, and you wouldn't have to update the data. You wouldn't have to update API gateway, but you could update the WAF and make changes on that. So that's another way of securing. Okay, so let's talk through caching, throttling, all that kind of stuff. Get some Diet Dr. Pepper. If you've got some, I expect you to take a drink. Or encourage you to. All right. Any other questions? Like Rob is killing it out there. So Rob, thank you very much. All right. So let's talk for a minute about caching. Now, one of the things we have, if we go down to settings on our API gateway, we have this setting. There's some different settings you can do in here, but the one we want to look at is the endpoint configuration. Now, here's where you need to make some choices. Dr. Pep. Yes, there it is. All right. Yes, Dr. Pep. Yes, I'm a Dr. Pep fan. I drink way more than I should. So, what you need to decide is regional or endpoint. Now, let me talk through some pros or cons of that, okay? If I do regional, that means my API gateway is going to be in the region that I built it. And in this case, it's US West 2. Okay, and so all calls will come into that. So if you're in, if you're in China or you're in Japan or you're in London, they still have to hit the regional endpoint in my US West, so the western part of the United States. Now, you have to look at where's your traffic. If most of my traffic is in the United States, that's going to, regional is fine. So the other setting I can do is I can do edge. Okay, so we could do private as well, but that's not really tied into what we're building here. But private, it helps you lock that down, so you can only do it from inside from specific, IP regions, other things like that. This is another way of limiting security to just inside. So, all right, so I'm going to go edge optimized. All right, so if I go edge optimized, here's what's going to happen. API Gateway is going to manage a CloudFront distribution for you. However, it's not going to enable the caching at the CloudFront. So if you don't know what the CloudFront is or edge distribution is, it means we have points of presence or POPs all over the globe. Okay, and at those POPs, you can make that an access point to your API, and then you can also cache data there. Right? So what happens is if I set this to be edge optimized, it's going to route the user to the nearest POP to get on the AWS network. Then that request is going to traverse the AWS network to US West 2 because that's where the API actually is. Right? So it doesn't cache your stuff on the edge. It simply puts a closer access point to your user. And that's important to understand because there's some pluses and there's some minuses to this, right? So the plus is all your caching You can handle, and your metrics can be retrieved from API gateway. If you actually decide instead to use CloudFront on your own, then you need to do your metrics from CloudFront, which works a little differently. Okay, so let's kind of flesh this out. So if I do edge optimize, what's going to happen is when I set my caching, that caching is going to happen in the region. When I set my, if I do a WAF or things like that, that's going to be in the region, right? So if I instead, what I can do is I can say I'm going to leave this regional. Okay. Now regional means, like I said, everybody has to, call into that one endpoint. That's the only one available. But instead, I can now create my own CloudFront distribution where I actually cache the information at the endpoints, at the POPs, and bring a closer, the access point to our network closer to the user. Now, the advantage here is, especially in our URL shortener, we don't need to update these URLs all the time. If someone writes that, it's probably not going to change very often. So we can put a time to live of 5 minutes or 5 days or 30 days or whatever. But let's say we do a time to live of an hour, right? So what happens is this pushes out. Then every time that if it's out on the CloudFront that you've set up, every time that URL is called within that hour, that your user is going to get an immediate response from CloudFront on the redirect they should go to, rather than traversing the network back to the API gateway, make the DynamoDB call, and come back out. Okay, so you can see, especially depending on how far they are, you reduce latency quite a bit. Now, the URL that I have, and you can find it at, it's slip.link, and I'm going to just type it in here real quick because I don't have them. But this one should take you, the one you build there, okay, this is the blog series, and it's also the GitHub repo of how to build everything I've been talking about with Sam. That one actually builds a full CloudFront distribution. And by the end of the day, when I was running tests, I was getting a P99 of, I believe, roughly 30 milliseconds globally on this because the data was cached out to the endpoints. Okay. The downside of that is, at the moment, CloudFront, it's a little harder to pull your metrics. Now, it's not impossible. It's absolutely doable, but it's a little harder. CloudFront will drop metrics, that's your access log metrics, into a bucket for you. Then you need to react to that and do some work on it, okay? However, with API Gateway, you can push your data directly into a Kinesis Firehose and do instant manipulation on that. Okay, so the thought here you have to go through is, okay, how important are my analytics to me? How important is latency to me? How what is my latency I'm willing to deal with? Okay, so probably the best of the middle, the middle ground is to go with an edge optimized if you want to do that. And then you can, and that way it puts the endpoint out to them, but keep all the actual dynamic part of it, the API gateway, the caching, all that kind of stuff, local to the regional. And so to do that, I would actually set this as an edge optimized way to go. So really kind of up to you. I hope that makes sense. I'm watching for questions. If it doesn't, I would love to hear, any feedback on that or questions that, maybe something didn't make sense. All right. So that's how we kind of look at what kind of endpoint do we choose. So I'm going to save changes. Okay. All right. So that doesn't take a lot. It's literally just I save it and I deploy it. So I'm going to go ahead, not services. I'm going to go ahead back to my resources. And anytime I make a change, then I'm going to go ahead and deploy the API. And we go, it's a prod. Okay, now in the last 2 episodes, I did a lot of showing you these actually working. So we're not gonna spend some cycles doing that right now, but you'll be able to see these. So this now is this invoke URL is now an edge based one, and so after it propagates out, if you do a curl against it, it would show the closest POP. So depending on where you are, but again, it's still traversing the AWS network or the Amazon network to get to the actual API gateway, which resides in US West 2. All right, so that's what we're looking at, edge setting versus regional. Any questions there? And I'm going to wait just a sec, see if we have any questions. And I'll take a drink of Dad Dr. Pepper. Okay, no questions coming through. That means I explained it so clearly that it's amazing. I've got an awesome up here on the screen. That was probably to something else, but it's probably to the Dr. Pepper, but you know. All right, so let's talk about a couple other things. Let's talk about logs and tracing. Okay, again, now you may, well, how's this security? Well, it's both security and it's optimization, okay? Because we want to be able to see, you know, what's happening with our system, right? So, one, I can enable CloudWatch, okay? And you can say, what is the level? So this is going to enable errors happening in API gateway, okay? These aren't access logs. These aren't the IPs, things like that. This is more, you know, what's going on in here. So I can turn that on, okay? So now I can log the full request and response data if I want to there. And I can enable CloudWatch detailed metrics, okay? So let me highlight over that. Let me get that. Okay, each method will generate these metrics: API calls, latency, integration latency, 400 errors, 500 errors. Metrics are charged at standard rates. So you have some advanced metrics you can get. Okay, now the custom access logging is kind of what's going to help you out a ton when you're looking, how is my application performing? Okay, so if I go in here, I can actually put an ARN. Now the fun thing about this is I can do a CloudWatch group ARN or a Kinesis Firehose data stream ARN. Okay, now I choose to do the Kinesis Firehose data stream ARN, and if you follow me on Sessions with Sam, which I do every Thursday, about 2 episodes ago, I show how to take API gateway metrics and do immediate analysis on them. Okay, so I do a whole half hour and show one whole half hour on how to build the SAM template that you'd build this all out. So what you can do is you could build that Kinesis template, get the ARN of the Firehose created there, and drop it right in here, and you would start getting your information. And that one actually built a Kinesis data analytics that you can grab and see who's hitting, you know, what path, you know, what URL, those kinds of things. So lots of power there. So you have control on how you want the logs to be formatted. I tend to go JSON. Okay, so you have this ability to say, okay, I want to pass all this data through, and you're able to grab contextual ID from the context, right? So the context has the source IP, it's got the caller, you know, different information. If you're doing authenticated, you could grab the authenticated info as well, so you can get pretty specific in what you're pulling in there. Rob, thanks for posting that. I appreciate that. Okay, if you're used to more of a CLF log type, you can change that. You can go XML if you really want to get crazy, and of course a CSV. So you have different type of ideas, and then you have a list of log variables here that you can use to get that information. I'm going to paste that real quick so we have that. All right, the last thing we're going to talk about here is Amazon Xray. Okay, so we're going to enable Xray. Okay, so what Xray does is Xray was built for distributed services. Okay, I can't talk today. So, and when we build serverless applications, yes, there's the Xray link. When we build serverless applications, you know, they're distributed, right? They're out on Lambdas, or we're using API gateway, and so if we kind of want to see how fast things are happening, well, this is a good way to do it. So I'm going to save this, and I'm going to show you what's going on here, so you can see that. So we're going to save that. We're going to deploy the changes. Okay, so we're going out to prod here. I'm going to grab my URL, and we're going to pull up our handy dandy Postman, and we're going to see this in action. Now, what I could do, and I use a tool. I'm not going to show it today because I would need to set it back up. But I use a tool called what's it called? It's Neiman Marcus put it out. Artillery. And it's serverless artillery, and it will actually spin up Lambdas to load test your endpoint. So you can get a lot of data there. And yes, Nordstrom, what did I say? Neiman Marcus? Yeah, thank you. It's Nordstrom's artillery, and Mr. Rob Sutter did point me to that tool, so he gets credit for that. If you want to throw a link in there to the GitHub, that's helpful too. I am fancy. Yeah, I'm Neiman Marcus. Yeah, nothing less. So, all right, so let's do a test on this real quick. And I'm going to encourage all of you, if you're watching this, okay, we got a 301 here. I'm going to post this link in here. And everybody, if you'll take just a few minutes to hit that link just over and over, you can hit it from browser, anything you want. So let's get some data flowing. Okay, now we're going to go back to Xray. Hey, Rob, is my text big enough? Can y'all see my text okay? All right. I'm going to take that as a yes until I see different. You're good. I am good, aren't I? All right, so let's go to Xray Services. Xray. Okay. Now, Xray does a couple things that we can get really crazy with. Okay. Yep. Okay, good. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look for service maps, okay? And it is computing the map based on what we've got. There we go. Look at here. I've got clients hitting URL Shortener API prod. This is my other one that I'm running that we actually use for shortening. And this is the one we're doing, okay? So you can look at this and say, okay, my, let's see, turn on service icons. Look at that. That's new, okay? So we can see health, okay? And we can resize this if we need to. So I'm going to go into Shorty prod and I'm going to see what it's saying. And you can see here where the response distribution, so you can see how it's coming in, 42 milliseconds, all the way up to 50 milliseconds. 20% are seeing 50 milliseconds, where roughly 15% are seeing less than 44. I'm having no faults. I'm having 100%. Okay, so I can drill into these, so we can analyze these traces. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not an Xray expert, but you can kind of get a look at this. So we can see we're getting a P50, where our P50 is just over 40%. Our P90 is up around, I can't see the number here. I'm sorry, going up. There we go. And you notice I've only got 2 traces. Okay, 6,000 P99. Oh, there we go. 393 millisecond, 0.5 milliseconds, 6,000 scenarios. So Rob just did a test on us, okay? So let's go back to our trace, okay? And let's see what we're seeing here. I'm sorry, our service map. Thanks, Rob. Okay, let's go. Let's turn off the, let me close that out. Let's go back to no service icon so we can, okay. So, alrighty. So we're having one, there we go. Let me pull this back up. Let me do a refresh on this. The last 5 minutes. The map is updating, so bear with me here. There we go. All right, so we've got some yellows in there. Okay. All righty. So average. So here we're seeing 100%. So we had some out to 80 milliseconds. Now again, these are samples. Okay, so also I throttled myself to a stream. Okay, there you go. All right, Rob disconnected. So you can get a lot of information in here. You can see where maybe some of your latency might be happening. API Gateway is adding an average of 1 millisecond and an average of 18 milliseconds at the DynamoDB itself. So you can go in here. Again, you can crawl deep into this. And again, I'm not an Xray expert. I use it to figure out maybe where some of my latency is happening. So you can climb in here. You can see all the type of status codes. You can filter by that. So again, that's a tool that's very handy. We won't spend much more time on this, but hopefully that was helpful. So let's go back to API Gateway. So one of the things I do, and when I'm building out my Lambdas as well, is I automatically turn on Xray on everything. It's part of my standard template that I launch with. And I turn on Xray so that I can get the information I need. I turn it on API Gateway. It's very helpful to get that data to see what's going on. All right. So the next thing I want to look at, let's go back to our stages. So we talked about how we can do, wait a minute. Oh, there's prod. Eric's asleep at the wheel, okay? All right, so if we want to enable API cache, now remember, I almost fell over right there. We did an edge location, right? Or an edge optimized API gateway. So it does make sense to use cache here, right? So I'm gonna do a cache, and we could say we want a cache capacity of 0.5 gigs going to be fine for us, okay? I don't need to encrypt it, I'm okay with that. And I'm gonna say the time to live is 300 seconds, okay? Require authorization, nope. No, I'm not going to worry about that right now. Okay, so, and that's good on the cache. And I'm going to start that because it actually spins up a cluster to handle that. Okay, this is one area you go, well, it might not be serverless, but yeah. It's not covered. So you see the pricing here, and I'll pop it over here, and I'll put the link in. Shows you how that works. Okay. There's the pricing in that, so you can see how that there is a price to caching there. All right, so when I do that, it's going to take a few moments. It's going to enable that, and then we'll be good to go. All right, so what that does, so a couple of things with caching. The cache settings, so I can set the settings in my header as well, coming back from API Gateway to set these, and that also works when I'm going out to CloudFront. So that's really helpful. Okay, so while that's coming up, let's talk throttling for a minute as well. Throttling is, so the way API Gateway throttling works is you have 10,000 requests per second per account per region, right? Okay, so if I have 10 APIs in the same region in an account, they're all going to share that bucket of 10,000 requests. And you can see that right here. Okay, and it has a burst of 5,000 requests. So let me explain that. So if I've got a bucket of 10,000 requests, and in the very first millisecond, 5,000 of those are pulled out, that's all it can handle at the same concurrent time. Now, throughout the rest of that second, even if it's on the next millisecond or spattered throughout the rest of the 999 milliseconds, then it can handle the other 5,000. But that's what that burst means. It means how much can I grab at the exact same time? An API Gateway can handle 10,000 requests per second with a burst of 5,000. However, that is a soft limit. You can raise that if you need to. So something to think about. Now, if you've got 10 API gateways in the same account, I would question that. Okay, so I would say, are those separate applications? Are they the same application, kind of under one umbrella API gateway? Maybe that makes sense, but what I would be looking at doing is separating those into individual accounts. We encourage, one environment equals one account equals one application, right? So we really encourage that you separate those up, because one, you can really work that, you get more throttle or more bandwidth per account, so you're not limited to that. So something to think about. Now, when I enable this throttling, this is for everything across the board. Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll enable that. But let's say I want to get a little more granular in that. Okay, so I can actually go into my resources, and I want to leave get. Okay, get is the important one. This under the link ID get. That's the one that everybody should be hitting as they're hitting that data, right? So. But let's say I want to start limiting, my application doesn't need as much of that bandwidth. So for them to add new links or get a list of their links. So let's say I'm going to do an override, okay, on this here. And I can go in and I can say, you can see all the same settings that we saw before, right? But I'm going to say, hey, for this, I only want them to have 3,000 requests per second and 2,000, 1,000 burst. Okay, so what I've effectively done here is I've said, hey, for the get option, for the main purpose of our application, you get priority, you get that whole bucket of 10,000. But for my post, which is not quite as important, if that errors out, they can try again in a few minutes. I'm going to only give you 3,000. Now the other options I can expand that as well, but it depends on how active it is. But this is something that you can get real granular with. You can also open up your cache settings. You can do cache for post to app. You can get very specific on how you want to do the cache on specific methods. So. All right, so I'm going to save the changes on this. Okay, so now what I want to do, did I save that? Yep. What I want to do is I'm going to go back to my stage, and I'm going to go to prod here, and we're still enabling, so we're not quite there yet, so we'll wait just a few more minutes, okay, before we go on that. Now, once I get this up and running, then I want Rob to run his test again to see if it gets any better. Rob, are you willing to do that for me, or are you going to get kicked out again? Okay, any questions on what we've seen so far? Okay, we've added logging and tracing. We've talked about throttling. We've talked about caching. And while we didn't actually build a WAF, we talked about doing a WAF. So those are different securities. Okay, both. All right. I don't know what both means, but okay. Okay. All right, so here's another way to do security as well. You can actually, how does the cache work with DynamoDB? Ah, excellent. Okay. So in stacks like this, you can do cache all up and down the line, right? DynamoDB, you actually have DAX, which is the DynamoDB accelerator, which actually builds a cluster of cache machines right in front of them, right? Okay, good. All right, good, Rob, thanks. So we're not going to do that. We're going to use the cache right at API gateway. So what's going to happen is the first time that someone calls this, let's say they call AWS, API gateway is going to make a call to DynamoDB, get that response back, write it to the cache, and respond to the customer. Actually, probably respond to the client, then write it to the cache. I don't know. So either way, or maybe at the same time. But then that is in the cache until its time to live goes away. So right now we've got our TTL to 300, which I believe is 5 minutes. So what happens is the next call, if it's in that 5 minutes, it'll get the response from the cache and not call DynamoDB. So what will happen is we'll see a large amount of hits on API Gateway, but a reduced amount of hits on DynamoDB. Okay, hopefully that answers your question. That is the chef 17. Okay, so that's how that works. All right, let's refresh this and see if we have our cache set up. Because again, remember, it's spinning up a cluster to handle that for you. So you're saying for ideal bandwidth, we should just limit one API gateway per account. Yeah, so it depends on how, you have to look at what does my bandwidth look like. But yes, you're going to get the most out of that if you spread across accounts. That's exactly right, because they are limited per account. And you see that same capacity or limitations in like Lambda. Lambda, you have 1,000 concurrent invokes per account. Right? So if I spread, now I'm not saying one application, but I'm saying don't put a bunch of the same production applications in the same account. It doesn't cost really anymore unless you're getting into non-serverless architecture. If I have 7 Lambdas for one application plus my API gateway in one account and 7 in another account, those invoking are going to be the same cost, even if they're in the same or all separate. So yeah, spread across accounts. Yeah, you're welcome. I'm glad that helped out. All right, so our cluster is still building, so we're going to go on a little bit. I think we've covered most of this stuff. All right, the next thing I want to show is, if you remember last time we talked about, oh, we got another question here. So ideally, we should have one application, one gateway per account. If you can do that, yes. If you can do that, Cletus Chubbs, I like that. That sounds like from back where I came from. I knew somebody named Cletus. That's very cool. All right. The other thing I want to show is a resource policy. This is another security item, okay? So a resource policy is a way of limiting who can hit this API gateway, all right? So you can do a simple account whitelist. You can do an IP range blacklist. You can do a source VPC whitelist. So let's pop in an IP range blacklist, okay? So if I go here and I can say, so I'm effectively denying everybody, okay? And then I can come back down here and I can add another one that says, all right, I'm going to add, so this would actually be a, this, what did I hit? Yeah, so what you've got here, the deny first and then the allow, so I can override this with different things. So I can change out, I can say, where's my resource coming from? It's this particular API that I'm working on. You fill this data in. And this allows me to set, if you know resource policies, this allows me to set, deny everybody except for these. So that's a whitelist, right? Or deny nobody except for these. That would be a blacklist, right? So you can do it either way. So it depends on which appears first. You can also do a source VPC whitelist, okay? So you can say they have to be coming from this VPC. And this is effectively what happens with a private integration. Right, so I'm going to say you have to be in, and this is actually a deny. So let's clear this out and create it again. Okay, there we go. All right, deny everybody, and you can actually allow by adding. The condition says, oh yeah, if you're in this VPC, then you can come in. So you have different, again, you have different ways you can set this up. All kinds of things. You can see an account whitelist if you want. Okay. So you can say, hey, you have to be from one of these accounts. It could be a root. That's a root there. It could be a user. It could be a role. So all kinds of things. So if you have machines, in one account that are calling this API gateway, you can actually wrap them in a role, like an EC2 instance. And if they have that applied role, they can call this API gateway. It's a great way to do security. So resource policies is one way. This is where I usually go first. Okay. So, and again, in that presentation that I did it, and you can look it up on YouTube, it's, and I'm going to ask Rob if you'll do it, building API gateway front to back, in YouTube from reInvent last year. I show exactly how resource policies work and and I actually demo them working. So thanks, dude. I appreciate it. Rob is a way better moderator than I am. I have to be openly honest. So, okay, so that's resource policies on how you can do that. All right, so let's drop out of this. We don't want to save this because we certainly don't want to limit ourselves. Now, I will say, if I'm looking to blacklist or whitelist, I'll go to resource policies first, right? If that doesn't do everything I need to do, or I can't get it, then I'll look at WAF, because WAF has some, geo stuff built in that maybe I don't have in resource policies. But look to resource policies first, because it's part of the API gateway. It's already part of what you're paying for, right? WAF is a separate charge, so look to using resource policies first. All right, let's go back to our stage. Let's see if that's built up. Whoo, that takes a little bit of time, huh? Alrighty. All right, so we're still waiting on that to go. So yep, that can take. Oh no, I'm sorry. Here it says it is available. Okay, we are available. So Rob, would you mind running the tests against our API gateway again? And feel free, anybody else, to hit that as well. See if it goes any faster. And I'm gonna go over here as well. So we'll send this shot over. Okay. All right. I don't know what that means, but okay. Okay, I'm getting some very fast, 102 milliseconds is what I'm seeing here from my, now remember, this is across my, my bandwidth as well. From the client, I've seen this. Oh, good, thanks. But someone has seen this and they like that presentation. Thank you. All righty, so you can see I'm getting some very low latency, and this is including my trip to AWS. So, all right. Hello, Stam. So Stam, all right, got a little double S on the front there. All right, welcome. All right, so let's go. We're waiting for Rob to see what we've got. He's doing a welcome. See what he's got. Do y'all has anybody seen that a little faster than what they had before because it's hitting the cache? All righty. Does the return time even matter if the API doesn't even return a response? Well, it is returning a response. Okay, so in this particular example, and I'll do it in the API gateway so you can see it, we are actually returning a response even though it says no data. Okay, so yes, it does. Oh, Rob got disconnected. Okay, let me show how that's returning it. What we're returning is a 301. So the response is only coming back in the header, and I'll show in the test again here so you can see that. So they're getting a response from it, but it's actually responding and immediately telling the browser to pop over to this other page, right? And that is located right here in the location header, and it's passing back the right domain. If I were to pass the wrong one that doesn't exist, then what it would do is it passes back a redirect to my little client, which is slip.link. So yeah, good, Bobby Flo. I'm glad that makes sense. So yes, it does matter. Where this kind of, and I've had people go, well, yeah, but it takes forever for the page to load up. Well, I can't help where it's being redirected to. So now AWS should be pretty fast, but the speed, so the only thing I have in control is when the client makes the request, I have no control over their bandwidth. So I want to get them onto my network as fast as I can. The AWS network's going to be faster. The backbone's a lot faster than going across the internet. So that's why I use the edge locations, right? So they have access right at the pop, then it goes on the backbone to my API gateway. So that's where I have control, right? So my API gateway, now I don't even have to call DynamoDB anymore, although that's really fast. I don't have to call DynamoDB because API gateway is going to respond with the cached response. So that's how you optimize this. And then again, the next step is, hey, I want to go ahead and push that cache all the way out to the edge location. So that would be pushing it out to CloudFront. So I would turn this back to a regional. Okay, so I would have a regional endpoint, and I would do a cloud formation and point it at or I'm sorry, CloudFront, and point it at this endpoint. And then what'll happen is, and this becomes very handy, is so one thing to talk about CloudFront. They take a while to spin up. If you've ever worked with CloudFront, it can take a little while to spin up. So 138.5 from East Coast, right? So it was 300 something earlier, wasn't it? Rob, looking back here, yeah. So we cut that in half. So just by caching that, we cut our speed in half across the country. Boom. So 138.5 is less than, or is just over a tenth of a second. My clients will be happy with that. That's a pretty quick turnaround. All right, so going back to what I was saying, and I absolutely lost track of what I was saying. We were talking about, hey, what was I saying? Somebody throw it out there. What was I talking about? Watching the text here. All right, I need your help. Looking here. Okay, well, we'll move on. I can come back around to it. All right, so when we talk about going back to edge location, and I want to push out to CloudFront, right? So then what happens is that data is right there. Now, we were talking, I know what I was talking about. I was talking about the fact that CloudFront can take a little while to spin up. So what you want to do is make sure, and if you look at the app that I linked earlier, and it's how it's in SAM templates and then OpenAPI, this is the way I set it up. I set it up so that CloudFront respects the cache settings coming from API Gateway, right? So let's say on the get, I need to send a cache setting. Well, in order to do that, I can't do that in a Lambda because I'm not setting anything up. So what we're going to do is I can go to the integration response, and under here, remember, we map some headers, right? So actually, first of all, let me show you here. In the method response, we kind of map what kind of headers we're going to pass back, right? So we're actually going to add a header. Let me grab this real quick. We're on the chat screen. Thank you, guys. Man, you just got to keep me honest. I'm so sorry. Okay, man. He'll be the first to tell you I'm dumb as a brick sometimes. So, all right. So let me go here. All right. Rob's a better moderator and a better streamer. Okay, so one of the things that we want to be able to pass is we want to be able to pass a header called cache control, right? So we're going to say cache control. Okay. Did I spell that right? I did. Okay. Now I'm not setting a value here. If you remember, and you'll see this in the last couple episodes, this just kind of models the data that we're expected to send out. Where I actually set the value is in the integration response. And the reason for that is I can dynamically set this from my integration behind. But because I don't have, all I'm talking to is DynamoDB, I'm going to set the value here. So now you see I have cache control here. I'm going to edit the value. And in here, all I wanted to say, let me grab that value real quick. All right. In the header mapping, this value, we're going to set this to a certain amount of milliseconds. Okay. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to say max age is 86,400. I believe it's milliseconds. Yep, that should be correct. So that'll store it. I can't remember. Somebody do the math. They can tell me what that is. But now here's the thing I always forget to do. You have to check this box. Okay. Oh, hey, guess what I did wrong? When you return these, they have to have single quotes around them. There we go. Look at there. So now what I'm doing is I'm setting a cache setting in CloudFront. CloudFront will respect this so that it says, all right, cache that. I can set the cache control TTLs in CloudFront, but guess what I have to do? I have to basically update CloudFront, which is going to take me 20 minutes, right? So I want to do as much control outside of CloudFront as I can. So I'll do my cache control at my API gateway to handle that. So with that, guys, I'm going to watch, guys and gals out there, I'm going to watch for any questions. I hope I've covered everything you want to cover. We did not cover all of API Gateway, I can tell you that for sure. But we've covered a lot over these last 3 sessions. And we will have another session in 2 weeks. I am not sure exactly what's going to be yet. I have 2 ideas rolling around, but I will be announcing that. So now what I want to do is I'm going to open this up for any questions we might have. Take off the screen, and man, anything API Gateway related, I'll be glad to answer. If we don't have any, then we'll go ahead and wrap it up. All right. I learned it from watching. Oh, good. Okay. All righty. We got a CloudFront down. Uh-oh. I don't know how to help you on that one. I'm sorry about your CloudFront down. But if you do need help, we can get you to the right connection. If you're, I don't know if you're playing or not, but I'm glad to see what we can do to help. All right. Okay, well, it looks like we're okay on questions. Looks like Rob has killed it as usual. I will encourage you, Rob, what's coming up? Put it into the chat. Tell us what's coming up very shortly, because my man Rob is always streaming as well, and he does some amazing stuff. So, uh-oh. Are y'all seeing me okay? I got a dead screen on this. Oh, there I seem to be streaming okay. All right. Okay, well, with that, I thank you for watching Happy Little APIs. I'm going to, let's see, stream was, yeah, I think, stream was, Okay, hopefully it's back up. All right, I'll be posting this to YouTube, the full recording, so if you missed any of it, be sure and check there on the YouTube channel. And with that, it's the AWS Serverless YouTube channel that we've posted there. And actually, I'll just take a quick moment and post that as well. Actually, I'll post it afterwards. So, all right. I will thank you very much and have a great day. Happy Little APIs. Stay happy.